everybody. Welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. I'm your host, Adam Hartel. And what you just saw as you guys were all getting settled in was the Gnomon student reel. This is all student work at our school in Hollywood, California. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest today and host this stream. Before I do, just wanted to take care of a little bit of housekeeping off the top. If you're in need of closed captioning, you're going to be able to find that over on our Facebook live feed. So if you head over to Gnomon's Facebook page, you'll be able to get closed captioning of video today. And today's video or live stream will be available as video on demand on our YouTube and Twitch channels following the stream. Additionally, I want to thank Lenovo for sponsoring today's event. Thanks to Lenovo's generous sponsorships, Gnomon continues to be able to provide free educational content to you on this channel. So thank you very much to them. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Christina Heller, who is the CEO at Metastage. Hi, Christina.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely, our pleasure. If you don't mind, I'd like to share with everybody a little bit about your bio. Obviously you're the CEO at Metastage, but since founding in 2018, Metastage has completed over 200 volcap productions with major brands and award-winning projects. Including 2 Emmy nominations. Metastage is the first North American partner for the Microsoft Mixed Reality Capture Tech. Prior to leading Metastage, you were also the CEO of VR Playhouse, an immersive content company with immersive projects featured at South by Southwest, Sundance, and Festival de Cannes. You're also the recipient of the Advanced Imaging Society's Distinguished Leadership in Technology Award and was named in the Huffington Post as one of the 5 women changing the virtual reality scene. Your writing and research on volumetric video have been published in the textbook Handbook of Research on the Global Impacts and Roles of Immersive Media and What is Augmented Reality. Everything you wanted to know, featuring exclusive interviews with leaders of the AR industry in 2019. So quite impressive and a real pleasure to have you with us. I think you guys are doing some really amazing stuff at Metastage, and we can't wait to hear more about it.
Thank you. It's always a trip when you hear your bio read back to you. You're just
I know.
like yeah, please. Anyway, but yes, it has been an amazing journey. I've been working in immersive technology now since the beginning of 2014. Before that, I worked in multimedia production. When I was in college, I started in radio and moved into television production and independent filmmaking, and it was one of those, in life you find those moments where there's just a crossroad, and like if you had gone one way, it might have all been different. And I decided to go to Sundance for the first time for my 30th birthday in 2014, and it was they just so happened to be featuring the DK1 of the Oculus Rift at New Frontiers that year, and I put it on my head, and it was just like that moment where I thought, oh my gosh, like, what would it be like to try to create content for this headset? And, just was bold enough to dive into creating a startup in this world, and just naive enough to not know how crazy what I was doing really was. And, yes. And started VR Playhouse, which has led me to this moment of talking to you today. So I'm happy to talk more about that journey later on. And I do have a presentation now where I can take you through Metastage and volumetric video capture.
That sounds great. I'll hop in the sidecar, but I think our producer is going to take me off screen, and I will pass the mic to you. I can't wait to hear what you have to say to us today.
Great. So I'm going to take you through Metastage, sort of our company, who we are, our bit of our history. And I'm also going to talk about volumetric video, volumetric capture. If you're not familiar with it, this will be a nice introduction to it. And if you are familiar with it, I hope that some of the case studies inspire you to think about new ways we can be using this new emerging creative technology. All right, one moment. There we go. So essentially, Metastage brings human performance, authentic human performance to virtual platforms. And here is a look at our Metastage. I'm going to I don't usually throw this joke in there, but I'm hoping that somebody out there will get it. I sometimes refer to Metastage as our Audrey 2, which is a reference to Little Shop of Horrors. It's our big green monster. It even has teeth, and everybody wants to come see it because it's so exciting. But since you aren't able to step into our stage today, we'll take you on a little virtual tour. So what you see here is our stage has 106 cameras, all facing inward at a performer or a group of performers. 53 of the cameras are infrared cameras, which are shooting out infrared points to create a point cloud and get the holographic, volume and depth of whatever's happening on stage. And 53 of the cameras are RGB cameras, which are capturing all the visual and textural data. So together, what these 106 cameras do is capture that performance from every angle, so you get a 3D asset of whatever happens on stage. It looks like a mocap stage in some ways. We actually do have a mocap system on our stage, but that's not, but it's totally different. When you're doing a volumetric video capture, you go out in whatever clothes you want to be captured in, or whatever costume your character is meant to be dressed in. You don't need any special suits or anything like that. Within the stage, you have an 8-foot, and we can extend it to 10 feet if necessary, an 8 to 10 foot range of motion at the middle of the stage, where that we say action and the performer can do anything. They can give a speech, they can do a dance, they can do a dramatic scene, they can take you through a training presentation. And we're capturing that performance from every angle to create an authentic, lifelike 3D asset of whatever happens on stage. And you can also see here, we've got 20 airy sky panels. So we have the full color spectrum. We can do practical lighting. We can do mood lighting, noir, concert lighting, all of that stuff. We generally do recommend practical lighting if you can, because you'll get that highest result. We also have 8 shotgun mics that circle the stage, and that captures audio from every direction. Sometimes if the costumes allow for it, we'll still use a classic lavalier. But if you're doing something maybe in a swimsuit or a yoga costume where you can't hide the mic, that's what we have those 8 shotguns circling the stage, and we get the strongest track from any one of them to kind of synthesize it and sound like the performer was boomed. And you'll also notice that if you look closely, all of the towers are on tracks. There's tracks in front of each one of the 8 towers. And that allows us to roll the cameras in or roll the cameras out. If you have somebody who's just standing and giving a speech, for instance, you might be better served to roll those cameras in so you can get an even closer, more detailed capture. If you're doing a big fight scene and you need as much space as possible, then you roll them all the way out. And at our physical studio right now, we're limited at 10 feet. Although in the greater Metastage ecosystem and platform, we're starting to experiment with larger configurations. We're eager to see how far we can really go while still getting a good quality capture. Also, as he mentioned in the intro, we were the first North American partner for the Microsoft Mixed Reality Capture System. So Microsoft had spent 10 years in R&D on this volumetric tech, and Metastage had the privilege to be the first company in North America to commercialize it and really unveil it to the public in this way. And since then, that was in 2018, as he said, we've done over 200 productions with major brands and clients, all kinds of different ideas. And we've had a couple projects nominated for Emmys. And yeah, we really were kind of the first stage of our kind in North America, and still one of only, a few in the world at this level. Just a few of the companies we worked with. You'll definitely recognize some of these logos. It really is just like the privilege of my career to be able to work with these brands, and as they begin to experiment with volumetric video. But I think it's worth mentioning that at Metastage, yes, we are experts at working with technology, but first and foremost, we are production people. We approach these projects with, the professionalism of a true commercial professional production. So that means a lot of pre-production, a lot of attention to detail, focusing on things like hair, wardrobe, and all of the elements that, once you bring the person onto the stage, it's the performance that really, really matters. It's the technology is absolutely incredible, but at the end of the day, it's the creative and it's the production that actually makes a good project or not a good project. And I think that is something that I'm very proud of at Metastage is that I do think we have a really close-knit, hardcore production team that takes all of the aspects of the production very seriously. And we've also built our company identity around what I'm calling a human-centric approach. So if authentic human expression and performance is our core business, we've tried to extend that human-centric approach to everything we do. So that means that's how we treat each other, with a lot of empathy and support as colleagues and employees at Metastage. And we work with our partners and we extend that same kind of humanity on a day-to-day basis to our partners. So why volumetric? Well, when only the real thing will do. We have seen, as I'm sure you have, that the advancement in synthetic avatars has come leaps and bounds over the past, few years. You are able to get higher quality synthetic animated humanoid avatars than ever before. But that being said, synthetic will always be synthetic and real will always be real. And so volumetric matters when you really want the real thing. And that comes into play, especially when we're talking about recognizable public figures like celebrities, athletes, politicians, just notable public figures. Or when you want to have something that doesn't have an uncanny valley. At Metastage, one of the things we pride ourselves in, and you'll see in some of the examples, is that we've really kind of surpassed that uncanny valley, which is that ick you get when you see a humanoid character that doesn't quite hit the mark. Picture a bad video game character. Depending on what your workflow is, volumetric can be a much faster, easier, and more high quality way to get a 3D human performance than going through the trouble of animating a lifelike head or body. So it really all depends. In this case, in this image, we actually captured somebody who was proposing to his girlfriend. It was like a fun experimental shoot we did where, she thought she was getting a tour of Metastage, and while they were on stage, we were rolling, and he surprised her with a proposal, which she accepted. And it's that kind of thing that, again, you can't animate it. It's just the real thing, and only could be done in volumetric video. So we are going to now go to our Sizzle Reel, and I'm going to pass it to the organizers out on the virtual stream to play it.
Just point your phone at the QR code and I'll show up as a hologram.
Oh.
It was just awesome. Hello, it's me.
Taking action. They were standing up against police brutality. They were standing up against the system in a way that had rarely been seen.
Thank you. So what you saw there is work that spans a lot of different use cases. You saw fashion, sports, legacy, educational. We saw at the end a volumetric snap lens for the Halloween Kills activation. Primarily a lot of our work when we first started fell into the augmented reality space. And, like QR codes that you can scan with your phone and, place in your living room. And now you can move about them while they're in your own physical environment. But what's been exciting is seeing our work getting implemented into classic VFX workflows over the past year for TV and film, and increasingly also virtual reality experiences. I think the reason we haven't honestly seen a lot of our work in more VR experiences, I think, is because the Quest, like Meta and Quest, has made it difficult to publish new content on their platform. And so therefore, I think we're not seeing quite as much production of VR content as we would if there was an easier way to publish and monetize. But that being said, we moved into VR training a lot in the past year and have seen a lot of excitement about using our captures for training experiences in VR as well. So what does it look like to work with Metastage? We start everything with a new project questionnaire. So someone contacts us, says, okay, I have a project I'm interested in talking with you about. We send them off a new project questionnaire that has all of the questions we need to know in order to accurately bid and scope out the project and also begin our consult. Once we have, assigned scope of work and we begin our consultation process and our pre-production process, which it's great if we can have about 2 weeks for that. I mean, we have certainly pulled things together much more quickly. I mean, we've had people call us on Thursday for Monday shoots, that kind of stuff. And, as you do, you figure it out and you rally. Ideally, if we can have 2 weeks for pre-production to align on hair and wardrobe and all of those considerations, that is good. And we really recommend a test day for every shoot day. On that half-day test, we can bring in the talent, we can bring in a body double, and we can do quick tests of them in their wardrobe or with any piece of the plot, the script that we might have a question about. We can test that. We can run off a quick render and make sure everything looks the way we're expecting. If we have done the test day, then people will enter on the production day and everybody's feeling good because we kind of know what we're doing. And at that point, it's all about just getting the best performance on the stage that we possibly can. You can do many takes of a scene or of a performance on the day. We'll keep script notes on those takes, if they were good, if they were bad. We then send dailies to the client after the shoot where they can review the takes again, and they give us the time codes for final processing. We will only do final processing and they will only pay for what is selected in the spreadsheet that we send to them. And then we typically say for most projects, it's a 2-week turnaround for delivery of the final assets. Obviously, that depends. If if someone's producing an hour's worth of volumetric content, then we'll present them with a delivery schedule and give it to them on a rolling basis. But in general, we can turn things around pretty quickly. And when we deliver them, they are ready to go. So here's a look at the tech a bit more. So as I said, we use 53 RGB cameras and 53 infrared cameras. From the infrared, you get this point cloud, which starts with a very dense point cloud, millions of points. From that point cloud, a mesh is derived, which is essentially a wireframe. And it starts with a very detailed mesh and is then decimated to really only what's necessary for the final execution. So if we're doing an augmented reality experience, that's using the browser as a way to, deploy it, we need to make it really small and compressed. Otherwise, you might have lag issues. If we're doing something for a tethered VR headset, we'll probably pump the poly count up a bit higher because it can handle, a bigger file. So typically, we decimate the mesh to either anywhere between 10,000 and 60,000 polygons. And using a UV map, which is like a paint by number almost, the software applies all the visual and textural data to those polygons. One of the great aspects of our software is that it will concentrate the polygons and detail on the places that really matter, like the face. So you'll see that we have more detail, more polygons on the face because that's where you need that detail. On the rest of the body, not as much. The beauty of this system is that it is really top of the line when it comes to reconstruction and also compression. So you're getting a really, really, really high quality capture that really looks like the person in performance that was captured, but it's compressed to such a small file size that you can engage with it on common devices like cell phones, iPads, etc. And when we deliver to our clients, we deliver in 2 file formats. We deliver a kind of classic OBJ and PNG sequence at full size that can be brought into any of the 3D software platforms like Maya, Nuke, Houdini. If you're working with Arcturus, their Holo Suite editing, you can bring in those OBJs and work with them like you would any other 3D asset. We also deliver an MP4 file, which is a proprietary codec, and it comes with plugins for Unity, Unreal, and the web. What's great about that MP4 is that it's super tiny and compressed, and the audio is already attached. So they're essentially drag and drop into your game engine when you're ready to work with that project. And we've had projects in put multiple volumetric captures and scenes with success. Then what's incredible is what you've captured. Once you've captured that performance of that person, that same asset can go into, and I know I've already said this, but it's just, I want to bring it home. You can bring that same performance and asset into AR, VR, MR, and you can do traditional virtual, not traditional, but you can do framed virtual production as well for TV, film, commercial campaigns. Additionally, all of these captures are future-proofed. So as display technology in the immersive sector continues to improve, everything we capture at Metastage will effortlessly port to those new systems. Like, for instance, if Apple comes out with AR glasses, our assets will work for those AR glasses. So there's this archival value as well to what we're capturing. We've captured a number of professional athletes and celebrities, and I really believe that those captures will increase in value over the years because they become, this kind of treasured, incredible capture of this person at this moment in their career and in their life. So I'm going to take you through a few case studies. As I said, we've done over 200 productions. We have so much work we could focus on. So I've just picked a few here to highlight. So first, you saw this at the beginning of the Sizzle Reel. We did a Samsung Buds 2 spot for TikTok with RGA in New York. The problem was that they were working with Charli XCX and they only had her for a few hours. In addition, they wanted to get her with multiple different backgrounds. And they also, I see some questions, and we'll get to those questions. They wanted to get her with multiple backgrounds. They also wanted to do sweeping, cool video game-esque camera moves. And so the question was, if we're going to shoot this practically, where do we bring her where we can get multiple locations in just a few hours? How much gear do we have to rent in order to pull off the kind of bullet time / sweeping camera moves we'd like to do? And how much is that going to cost? We decided to approach it differently and instead combined volumetric capture with some traditional green screen for close-ups. So in this ad, you'll see anything that shows Charli's full body is all volumetric video. There are a few key close-ups that were shot against traditional green screen at Metastage. And all of the backgrounds, all of the camera moves, that was all done in post-production using 3D software. So here's the final piece, and we'll have you take a look. Oh, or maybe not. Hold on one second. Here we go. So just to reemphasize, all of those camera shots were done with a virtual camera in Maya. So there was actually no cinematography done in the traditional sense. And they had so much fun in post being able to play with different camera moves to see, which had the effect they were going to like the most. In the end, RGA saved a bunch of money going this route, and the Samsung, Charli, the fans, everyone were really happy with the final result. We also worked on a very cool ad campaign this past year for Coca-Cola, and it was for their new product called Starlight. And essentially, this was an augmented reality campaign where you scan a Coke, the Starlight Coke bottle, and that acts as a trigger to create a virtual reality intergalactic concert experience starring pop star Ava Max. So we did 3 songs with her, and here is a look at what it looked like when you did the AR experience.
If all the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. You live without me, you wanna, but you can't. Think it's funny, but honey, you run the show on your own. I can feel my body shake. There's only so much I can take. I'll show you how a real queen behaves. No damsel in distress, don't need to save me. Once I stop breathing fire, you can take me. And you might think I'm weak without a soul, but if I had one, it'd be bigger than yours. If all the kings had their queens on the throne, we would pop champagne and raise a toast to all the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. Disobey me, then baby, it's off with your head. I'm changing and making a world you won't forget. No damsel.
So I'll stop it there, but super fun. And I got to say, we were really impressed by the fact that we were able to transfer all that entire environment and all of that data through Eighth Wall, which is a web XR distribution. You didn't have to download an app or anything like that. So super, super fun. We also had the privilege of working on an experience called Holomoji back in 2020, when all of the athletes were not able to compete because of lockdown. Verizon had them come to Metastage, and we did a capture of almost 30 NFL players doing different kinds of cheers. They were like touchdown, like go for 2, like, and they were, the idea was that fans at home would be able to cheer alongside their favorite athletes. It was just a crazy experience. And honestly, I mean, maybe, if I ever hang out with you someday, I'll talk about what it was like to do an NFL shoot like that during COVID. It was both exhilarating and extremely stressful. We also had the privilege of working with Verizon on a project called AR Pro Interactive. The company who did the development on this was Trigger Global. And here you can see we had athletes who are at the top of their game teaching you how they do their signature moves. So for instance, we had Ray Allen doing a 3-pointer. We had Megan Rapinoe kicking a soccer ball, Sloane Stevens showing her backhand, Tony Finau swinging a golf club. We had Austin Matthews, the hockey player, come in, and we actually brought fake ice for him to skate on. So I'll show you a quick little look at AR Pro.
In today's world where online learning now is a pretty big thing, with AR Pro Interactive app, I can just pull the phone out of my pocket and learn.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm going to take you through how I drive.
Today, if I look at a video to try and assist myself on my golf swing, it's really not the same as having the real person there. And the way the application works, we can work directly with those professionals, capture all the moves in their likeness in a 3D format, and place them directly with the individuals so that you can see exactly how that athlete performs to improve your game.
Having the ability to put myself side by side with a professional athlete is pretty cool. You can analyze the moves that you're learning in real time, share the move with friends, and then receive feedback that just promotes the learning experience.
It goes much further than athletics. There's going to be ongoing videos that'll come from the professionals just to go through new learnings, new teaching, new advice, and that'll constantly be refreshed. Verizon's 5G is going to allow us to bring those.
So that's also a bit of an example of why we have our motion capture system on the stage as well, because anything that's too thin, our system has trouble recognizing the geometry of it. So for instance, a golf club would disappear. So what we do is we add markers to the golf club and remove it and then replace it with a CG golf club in post. And we had to do the same with the tennis racket. I would say that each one of the sports athletes, with the exception of maybe Megan with the soccer ball, which just captured fine, everyone had a sort of a unique challenge that they presented in terms of capture. And this project was really just such a great learning experience, I think, for us and for everybody who was working on that project. We also got to work with the Russian singer and activist Pussy Riot on a music video that she sold as 4 NFTs during the height of NFT mania last year. And by selling the four NFTs of this music video, she raised $350,000, with the proceeds largely going to benefit victims of domestic violence. And they had a sort of reasonable budget for this video. They didn't have too much, so they were really creative about how they were using the volumetric video. They did a lot of loops. So, for instance, when you see her running in this, a lot of that was done on a loop. And it just came out so cool. And this was built in Unity. Okay. And the team that built that piece, that produced that piece, went on to become the company Jadu AR. And if you haven't checked them out, I definitely recommend it. Jadu has really just grown in this interesting way in the past year, where they're moving into AR gameplay, NFTs. They're building out what they call a whole mirrorverse for AR gameplay. So I highly recommend checking out Jadu. They're an incredibly interesting company, and the director of that video, who's the CEO of Jadu, Asid Malik, is truly a visionary, and I don't say that lightly. So I wanted to let you know that we have a Metastage app on iOS and Android, which you can download for free. And we have some examples of volumetric video in the app. And that will allow you to kind of play with volumetric and become more familiar with it. And there are performances like the one you see here in the Artists tab. So definitely feel free to check out the Metastage app if you want to play with volumetric video in AR and kind of see the quality and like what it looks like in your own home with your own phone. I'm going to skip ahead to here. Just a few more projects I want to highlight. We captured a real ayahuasca shaman for a project called the Kosmik Journey. We captured a ballerina who had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, telling her own story through dance. And what this piece was particularly significant and really stands out in our canon because the team that did it, Springbok Entertainment, did a LiDAR scan of the real Orpheum Theater in Vancouver, and then placed all the volumetric assets on that LiDAR photogrammetry scan of the theater. So it really is kind of the next evolution in 3D cinema, where you're taking the best of location scanning and combining it with the best of volumetric video to create something really unique and beautiful. So I'm just going to show a short part of the trailer so you can see that as well.
The 100% tells the harrowing true story of Maggie Kaderka, a ballet dancer whose career was derailed when she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. In this immersive experience, the audience takes center stage during a theatrical performance of Maggie's story. The 100% is designed to help fund research for those like Maggie and is the centerpiece of a campaign to benefit Stand Up to Cancer. This story is experienced in a VR headset and features over a dozen volumetrically captured performances in a real-time 3D environment. A seasoned team of creatives, artists, and developers joined forces.
So we move on. And then we also did a project for Viacom for VidCon, which is like a big conference. I think obviously mixed reality applications are super fun for trade show booths, things of that nature. So they did a Magic Leap experience at VidCon that took you inside the show, and people were able to interact with the characters who were all volumetrically captured. And I'm going to show just a quick little video from that too.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Imagine opening your eyes and you were no longer streaming your favorite show. You were in it. Super dark. The curse is getting stronger and we're running out of time. Super creepy and super real. What are you doing in my room? That's exactly what we at Awesomeness TV pulled off for the season 2 return of our.
So yeah, super fun, super fun. I also wanted to talk about an exciting advancement, which is creating interactive narratives with these volumetric videos. So we are starting, along with our partners, to experiment with using natural language processing to create interactive narratives where you can have conversations with these holograms. Our kind of first foray into that was for a project called Career Day, where in the most basic kind of interactive terms, you were presented with 2 questions. You could ask Serena Williams. You speak aloud the question that you want to ask her, and then her hologram gives you the appropriate response to the question you asked. So I'm going to show a video of that right now as well.
This is our setup.
What was your life like when you were 10?
When I was 10 years old, I had just moved to Florida. I used to live in Compton, and we just picked up when we moved to Florida. And I started training tennis every single day.
So one thing that is important for those types of conversations is you need to have the head tracking with the viewer, so it looks like there's a one-on-one conversation happening. So here I'll show you a little bit of what that gaze shader looks like, where the head will track with the VR headset and make it look like the conversation is happening one-on-one. All right, so I have a lot more that I can show, but I really want to move to pretty soon to a Q&A and an active discussion. So I'm going to skip ahead, and I just want to point out we've started building a library of background assets that you can implement in either Unity or Unreal. These are short loops of people engaging in everyday behavior. So they're wearing, kind of business or casual attire. We did some medically focused captures as well. And they're really intended to be background actors in scenes. You can buy them on the Unity asset store, and they're pretty inexpensive. I think they're $40 per asset. And it allows people to begin to experiment with volumetric video. And when we launched it, we were really imagining it for things like architectural visualizations, things along those lines, where they need to add life and scale to these places, and bringing in realistic human performances, which is create a more high quality simulation than throwing in like a kind of static 3D asset. But it's been interesting since we launched them in the store, a few years ago. I've heard of people using them for all kinds of things, like a TSA proof of concept, all kinds of stuff. So just wanted to let you know that those are in the Unity store and available. And then, yeah, I think that's it. I think at this point I've certainly gone through a lot, and I'm ready to pass it back to Adam, and we can chat a little bit more about everything I presented here, and certainly get into some of these questions that are in the chat here.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to say, just sitting to the side and watching your presentation, this is amazing. This is really, really cool. I had a couple questions that came up for me that I wanted to ask before we get to some of the questions that are coming from the chat. And the first was, just in terms of your story, I want to rewind back to, I think, about 2014 or so, when you first experienced VR and were really inspired. And you already had a lot of production knowledge up to that point. And was this a pivot for you, or how did you take your steps after that to get to where you are now?
Well, I had been throughout my 20s a blend of both a production expert slash, I don't want to say expert, because obviously when I started, I wasn't an expert, but I had been working primarily in production my whole life. And I also had the entrepreneurial bug, where when I was, I'd only worked like a real job, after college for about a year and a half. I worked at a TV station in New Hampshire, actually, as like a one-woman band, shooting and editing and occasionally producing and hosting. I was just doing it all. And during that time, it was when we were first moving to digital content production in a serious way, right when, Final Cut Pro was just coming out, iMacs were allowing you to edit at home. And I was working at my office with a DVX 100, which was a mini DV camera. And it was just like I've been lucky, I think, at certain points in my career to have been at the cusp of certain technologies at certain times. So, once I realized that for the investment of a few $1,000s, I could have my own production studio in my house, I quickly, made that investment and started my own production company. And, and it was my very first time. So I learned the process of starting and getting an LLC and opening a bank account and all of those things that, starting a new business requires. And that kicked off, I think I started 3 different LLCs in my 20s for various boutique small production companies. And also during that time produced two feature documentaries and moved out to Los Angeles in the process. So, I think, like I said, it was this blend of kind of a production junkie meets entrepreneur that was the foundation that led to this moment when I went to Sundance. At that point, I was feeling pretty burnout. I had worked in documentary filmmaking and journalism for a number of years and just had this nagging feeling that I wasn't going to be able to make my mark in these industries the way that I had ambitions to, simply because they're so established and there's so much great work that had already been done. And so I started thinking, okay, well, what's next? What's that nexus of technology and media that might allow, the part of me that wants to innovate to come through? And Sundance 2014 put on the VR headset, and it was just that moment, and I had that classic VR moment where, I looked all around and I could see the world all around me and thought, wow, well, this is kind of the answer to the question that I've been searching. And then decided to start another company. But again, like I said, I had no idea when I started VR Playhouse, I had no idea how much more challenging this journey was going to be compared to like starting the boutique production company when I was 23,
Yeah, you were starting a company, but on top of that, kind of pioneering, sort of doing all the heavy lifting of pioneering something new. Yeah.
And getting into a technology workflow that was so much more intense than that which I had come from, which was primarily video editing and audio editing. I didn't have a VFX background at that point. As we, it was, when we had to make the investment for a render farm, for instance, these were all such new areas for me. And I was constantly kind of like outside my comfort zone and leveling up and having to really rely a lot on the technicians and specialists around me to understand this world that I was embarking upon, which was like VR and AR.
Yeah. What I love, thank you for that answer, by the way. What I love about your story is it's not like you were just sort of, you were prepared for the inspiration to strike. And I think that that's something that's really important for creatives to understand, especially younger artists. It's like, sometimes we just think, well, just serendipity will happen and we'll know everything that we need to do from there, or it'll just it'll take us to the next step. But you had already created a problem to solve for yourself. Mm-hmm. And you had this like thing that was like, what is this going to be? And then when you saw it, it was like, aha. And I think that really is part and parcel with sort of the pioneer mindset, right? Like, you're not just waiting for inspiration to come to you. You're reaching for everything and you find the thing that you want. So I love that.
Yeah.
You don't mind me sort of reflecting on your story there. But the other question I had for you was just, and you probably get asked this question a lot. And it's kind of an odd question to ask because you're already so, like, you're on the cusp of so many things that are new. Like, we're not talking about an old technology here. We're talking about something that's in development. But, when you think about Metastage, both the technology that you're innovating as well as some of these production methodologies that you're trying new areas and stuff, how do you see things evolving? Or maybe what would be your sort of dream list of where you'd like to see this go?
I think my biggest, like the thing I'm most excited for in terms of seeing our work come into fruition is the the consumer AR glasses evolution. Like, I will say, you know, that AR glasses will be just like, when and if those become mainstream and commonplace, it will be just like the cell phone, where there are both amazing and also some like new challenges as a society we're going to have to deal with. I'm not saying that I think AR glasses across the board are going to be universally incredible and save the world or anything like that. I think there are certain things I can already see that I'm like, ooh, like, for instance, giving up our shared reality, at least in physical
Right.
space. Like we will no longer be able to take for granted that we are in the same shared physical reality, because I could be seeing something totally different than you're seeing. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I can say, just from the lens of volumetric video and volumetric capture, I am so excited for the AR glasses, because right now, having to hold up the phone or the iPad,
Sure,
it's a bit cumbersome. It is magical. It's so cool. Like you saw the Ava Max thing, so neat. But once I can see these holograms, and we call them holograms. Some people don't like that term. We don't have a really awesome term for it, so I'm just going to call them holograms. But when you can see these holographic performances in front of you, as if they're standing in your space, it just brings you so much closer to these performers, these athletes, these celebrities than you can even imagine. And I have seen them on the HoloLens, and it was breathtaking. So I'm really excited to see like how much cooler this tech will be once we free the hands and we're just seeing it like manifest and materialize right in front of our eyes. Also, you know, I think that I'm eager to see more of our work using the virtual production techniques that you saw in the Charli video and the Pussy Riot music video. I think that it's exciting to free creators to, you know, do more exciting, you know, production with volumetric video, hopefully making that an easier pathway.
Yeah, it was like right before you got into the music video space. I was already thinking like, this is gonna totally change the way that, you know, musical artists can present themselves. I'd almost, like, I was thinking about it. It's like, would I rather be in the nosebleed section watching a band perform because that's the ticket I could get, or would I like to be able to move around them freely, you know, even on stage, you know? Because like I was watching the thing and I was like, this is amazing. This is going to be a whole new world, I think, definitely for content consumption, for sure.
Yeah. And for me, the part that I feel good about is that we're bringing real people and real performances into this new medium. You know, I think I don't want to live in a metaverse where everything is synthetic and where we're only like worshiping the cartoons and synthetic. Now, I think that synthetic and fantasy realities are amazing. Like I'm in VR chat all the time. I love it. But I think that I still want us to, you know, pay homage to the incredible capabilities of real people and real connection in our physical experience. And so, you know, Metastage as a conduit to bring, you know, the best of reality and real people into the metaverse feels like a mission that I am like can really strongly get behind.
Yeah. Do you see a future where, you know, technology gets increasingly democratized, right? So where I have a webcam on my computer and we can talk in video like this, where, you know, even just a couple of decades ago, that was like, whoa. Do you see a future where, you know, the tech is small enough that I actually could do sort of this Metastage type capture and we could communicate with each other in that way?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for the short term, you know, the systems you would need to do, you know, at home volumetric are going to be still pretty a pretty big technological lift for most people, and the quality might not be at the level that, where you really feel like the person's in front of you, but jump ahead 10 years or 20 years. Totally. Like I really do believe we're going to be able to holographically teleport, into each other's homes and have these just like really unique, interesting ways of engaging with each other that defy, time and space.
Absolutely. I love the way you just said that too. That's amazing. So yeah, and that's sort of the last question that I have before we jump into the questions from the chat. I'm thinking of, aspiring artists and people who are aspiring towards production. What are some of the different pathways that you see into working in the world that you're in terms of, like, I think of you've got people that are 3D artists, or people who are software technicians, but then I think also people who are just working in production, right? Like,
yes,
because I would guess that a lot of those production techniques that are being used outside of your realm will translate.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I'm sure that you've all heard this before, but there aren't enough Unity and Unreal developers. Like, real-time developers are in, and especially really high quality expert real-time developers are in short supply and being gobbled up by the major tech companies. And all I hear all day is, do you know any good Unreal or Unity developers? And on top of it, if they're diverse, that also, like, it helps. Like, I think everybody's trying to just, like, bring more people into the fold from different backgrounds and ethnicities and things like that. And so I just encourage, anybody who is a technical artist and is excited about working in immersive tech, probably your easiest foot in the door, easy because you still have to learn the software, but once you've learned the software, Unity and Unreal devs are just, I'm hearing people want them all the time. And to be honest, at Metastage, we're, looking 6 months into the future, we want to build a small game engine, developer team in-house as well. So it's not inconceivable that in a few months, I'm going to be looking for at least a couple Unity and Unreal devs. So that's the first thing. But there are a lot of roles inside of immersive media that don't require you necessarily to be the most technically capable. Because this industry pulls from so many different mediums. So I really encourage people to go to conferences and start to mingle, figure out where you think you can be of most help to these companies. Is it in marketing? Is it in producing? Is it in project management? And, familiarize yourself as much as you can with the players, the tech, and the processes, and then go to conferences and start to meet people and talk. And don't be afraid to, put yourself out there in the way that you want people to perceive you. I really believe that it can take maybe a couple years, but that first year, at least this was my experience, was that first year for me of going to conferences was really pounding the pavement and introducing myself to a lot of people and just letting them say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. These are the opportunities I'm looking for. By year 2, at that point, people start to remember you. They start to recognize you. And so just like, it might require a little bit of patience, but just getting that in-person connection can't be overstated.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to jump into, I've already grabbed some questions from the chat. We're going to start jumping into those. So the first one that came up was, I'll just read it as it came in. Yeah. So they're saying, so the export can be an OBJ PNG sequence. Is the texture animated?
So basically what it is it's just single frame OBJ and PNG sequences. So when strung out in a sequence, it's an animated 3D asset. And then individually they're just like they're like static captures frame by frame.
Gotcha. Yeah, because if I'm following correctly in what I was seeing, it's like you're simultaneously capturing your geometry, which you can then simplify and make less expensive to whatever platform it's going to be. You're also capturing your texture for that
Mhm.
geometry and,
Yes.
and getting it all together. Okay. Next question: are the proprietary MP4 volumetric videos dropped into deciphering the question? So, I think what they're asking is, are what you're making something that can essentially just be dropped into a game engine?
Yes. Like,
Okay.
so the Pussy Riot video was made all in Unity. We also have Unreal plugins. So we have, some instructions on how to do that. And we will walk our clients through that process if there's any questions on that. But yes, it's intended to be dragged into a scene and then play like any other kind of 3D asset. Although I will say one caveat is we don't recommend doing heavy relighting to these volumetric assets. It degrades the quality of the capture. It depends on what you're doing. Like for the Charli XCX commercial, when they were working in Maya and Nuke and Houdini, they did add some relighting effects to Charli and were able to make it work. But in general, I just want to say you can't quite do the relighting on these captures like you would other 3D objects in Unity and Unreal. And so that's why we recommend, like, if we can get the look of the scene ahead of time and relight that during the capture process, practically, that's the best outcome.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so someone was asking the AR experience, or kind of the end result. Are we talking about a capture that can be rotated, resized? Like,
Absolutely.
could I be in the room and then like literally walk around the person?
Yep,
That's
100%.
amazing. Okay, and then what you showed in the presentation, even with like where the subject is being captured now can track with the person. That's insane. That's amazing. And you've solved one of the most uncanny things about the Zoom world that we live in now, which is like often to look at our screens, we're looking away from the person we're talking to. So that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Next question is, someone was just curious to know how long the Charli capture took, essentially, from start to finish.
So we had Charli at Metastage for 8 hours total, and she did 4 different costumes and performances during that 8-hour period. So, as far as her actual capture time, it was, and also during that 8-hour period, we also shot her against a traditional green screen for the close-up shots. So the way to think about it, though, is if my hair and clothes are ready to go, I can walk out onto Metastage. We say action. I do what I'm going to do. We say cut. And if I've nailed it, I can go home after that. It really is like that fast and easy for the talent. But obviously when you're working with commercial talent, the directors are going to have probably some multiple takes, and they're going to say like, oh, can you move your hand a little differently there than you did in the last take, that kind of thing. So for that whole commercial, I think we had 8 hours with Charli on stage. And like I said, I think we did volcap, we did green screen, and we did some behind the scenes content during that 8-hour period. And then she just got to leave. And it was just like, so much easier, I think, than it would have been than it would have been if they tried to shoot it practically.
Yeah. And then I think I might know the answer to this already, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Someone just wanted to know, how do you rig a volumetric capture or person? Like, what kind of rigging are we talking about?
So a volumetric capture, like the ones you've seen, they are not rigged. They are just a 3D mesh that kind of plays and moves in real time, or in time, and there's no skeleton inside the asset. However, we have started, as a matter of protocol, doing a T-pose of everybody when they come to Metastage, because on our end that takes a second. We literally can do it just like by clicking a button. It's capturing that single frame. And using various tools, including like, for instance, our friends over at Arcturus have built some volumetric tools that allow you to add a skeleton to that single frame capture. And now you can like animate it like you would another 3D asset. So wow. These do have the ability to be animated. The face will still be static though. So that's just something to keep in mind. But if you need to create something where someone's like running across the background of a shot or something along those lines, you can do that.
Yeah, you can get some of those extras if you're like, oh, we didn't get that, but we can animate it.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And I think also just what that could mean moving forward, the implications of that is really, really neat. Kind of getting the best of both of those worlds. Okay, next question is, how long does it take from capture to textured and decimated mesh on average per shot? So they were saying from their point of view, they felt like the amount of captured data is going to be so much that it would take a really long time.
So we capture 30 gigabytes of raw data per second.
Wow.
So you are right that it is a ton of data. But the miracle of the Microsoft software we use is its ability to take that data and compress it to super small file sizes. So for instance, an average minute of volumetric video is about 70 megabytes when we're done with it. So think about that, 30 gigabytes of raw data per second to a minute of capture at 70 megabytes. And we can even make it smaller than that if we need to, for we ended up working with Microsoft to pull off some major miracles on that Snapchat lens that we did, because obviously the Snapchat lens, I think we got them to do it for 15 megabytes, but we had to do maybe a 10-second capture that came in at 15 megabytes. But that process takes some time. I would say that we can process a minute. It would take a few hours to process a minute of volumetric capture. So that's why we typically say 2 weeks for turnaround on most jobs, because it does take some time for the processing software to go through that process. And then additionally, let's say we process a minute of capture. When it comes out, it'll come out looking pretty good, but we might catch some little anomalies that aren't quite right. So we put everything through an exhaustive QA process where we literally have somebody go frame by frame on the volumetric capture and spin it around and just make sure that everything looks right. And then we take notes. If anything isn't correct, we send it back to the processing team and they'll do another iteration. So, an easy job might have two iterations to final deliverable, but a really challenging job, I think we've done sometimes 20 or 30 iterations to fix little issues that are coming up. And so that's why we're fanatical about pre-production, because a lot of that pain can be cut out of post if we're just more thoughtful during the production phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question is, they're curious to know if you have any capabilities yet for on location capturing, or is everything at this moment being done on your stage?
So at the moment, everything is being done at Metastage here in LA. And then next month, we're launching a Vancouver studio as well. There are other volumetric technologies that can go on location. Everything has benefits and disadvantages. I feel like Metastage really has the quality on lock, thanks to our amazing team and the Microsoft system that we use. And it doesn't hurt, of course, that we're in a professional sound stage with all of the the things that create a good capture, like good audio and all of that. So, if you want the quality and the kind of professional production experience, come to Metastage and you'll get that. But if you need to shoot something on location, there are other volumetric systems that have those capabilities, but you're going to sacrifice a bit on the quality side. Sure. You're going to get things you'll notice in a lot of other volumetric capture systems, the nose is sort of flat, they have these kind of flat faces and just stuff like that. And then I'll actually jump, I see because it's relevant, I'll just jump to the question with live volumetric. So to our conversation about Zoom and the future where we're going to holographically port to each other, live volumetric is in some ways the holy grail. If I can, and I would say, more than even just good live volumetric, the real holy grail is a volumetric system that could be on a stage while the person was performing. So if there was a way for, Beyonce to do a performance and then somehow she's volumetrically captured during that performance and it's ported to, devices around the world, that would be insane. Yeah. And live volumetric exists today. There's a company, one of the companies, 8i, for instance, has a live volumetric system. The quality is still, though, pretty low. I mean, again, for the miracle of technology it's incredibly impressive. But you'll see like the fingers sort of glob a bit, and it's not quite like a high quality volumetric video yet. That being said, a number of different teams, including our friends over at Microsoft, are working on this problem. And so I think that, I wouldn't be surprised if within a year to 2 years, we start seeing some live volumetric, in a true commercial sense, become unveiled. And then, I think it will take more than that to reach like the pinnacle that we're really
sure. Imagining. I just love the fact that we're even having this conversation. Like this is something that's a possibility. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. A few more questions from what I got, and then we'll head over to anything that's come into the chat. Unless you have something you want to bring up, I love that.
No, let's keep it going. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, next. We did that one. Do you get a lot of individual people reaching out for personal projects, or is it more larger companies and projects?
It's mostly larger companies or production companies, mostly because, Metastage is very much like a professional soundstage, and therefore we charge professional pricing for it. It's probably outside the reach of most, individuals. We always try, though, to accommodate, like if somebody has budget, and it's, we'll do our best to try to figure out how we make it work. But more often than not, it's more of usually a professional production process when people are reaching out to us.
Yeah. And then the last one that I have that I grabbed earlier from the chat was, someone's just curious to know how many people are in your team presently.
Right now, there's only 10 of us. We're a super tiny little team. But then if you take into account like our Vancouver partners, they've got another, 10 people up there. So we're slowly expanding. And I do think, and then we're also partnered with Magnopus, which is a really amazing AR VR company based in downtown. And they have 175 people on their staff. So Magnopus has been with us from the beginning and acts as sort of our backup geek squad. Whenever we have an issue or we need help, we call them and they'll give us resources. So yeah, we're a pretty small, close-knit little team over at Metastage.
That's really cool though. Let's see, we've got the live volumetric capture question. So I had another question that came up, and guys, we've got a few more minutes together. So if you have any more questions you want to put in the chat, please do feel free. But I wanted to ask specifically about the implications of what you're doing for game production. My head was going to a space of like, I remember back in the 90s where the game engines were not able to reach a certain level, but you started seeing like video capture being ported into games. You saw kind of a pixelated version of some of the video. So I was thinking this idea of like, yeah, sure, you can model and rig characters, but what do you think about, getting performance capture on your stage specifically for games? Have you guys been exploring that?
I would love to explore that, to be honest. It hasn't, we've done some like work in terms of augmented reality games, and one in particular is still in post right now. The other we're about to begin production on that are specifically like AR games. But if we're looking at traditional games, we haven't really broken into that industry yet. And I'm not 100% sure why, except for perhaps it's because I don't come from a gaming background. So, I haven't, I went to E3 one year and I showed them our stuff all over the place. And the impression I got was like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is super cool. I could see how it might have some value to our process, but also we're very kind of attached to our motion capture workflow and are not, are suspicious of breaking away from our more established model of production. So I do think that our stuff would work really well in gaming applications, but I haven't had the chance to work on any established games yet, other than the AR games.
Yeah, and that was the next thought that I had was I think what this means for AR gaming will totally lift that into a new
Yes.
space. 100%. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, like the whole mixed reality space is sort of a combination of gaming meets like theater, meets VFX. And
Mhm.
so, if you look at some of the work we've done in the past year with training, for instance, like VR training, I mean, it's a very gamified approach where, I'm in an environment and I'm interacting with a character and something happens and then that triggers a different outcome. And, we're basically creating like VR video games for training,
Mhm.
using holographic, captures, but it hasn't yet ported to the commercial gaming sector, at least for us at Metastage.
Yeah. And I love what you're showing with regards to the sports instruction, like the golf instructor,
Yeah.
any kind of physical performance or anything like that. It's a totally new way to receive training. And just the fact that I can walk around and observe, how that person's standing. Have you looked into, or maybe you're already thinking of this? I was several times I had to go and I was thinking about the latest Blade Runner movie, where you had this interactive hologram, but at moments, you could also step inside the hologram and track, is there possibility in the future for someone to have this person training them, but also just try to stand and align themselves with
That's
that
super
instructor?
interesting, Adam. I gotta say, I haven't even thought of that yet. So that's
Okay.
so I'll just emphasize that again, we are at the very beginning of this, and
Yeah.
there are so many cool ideas that haven't been thought of or imagined yet. And it's that kind of stuff that makes my job really fun on a day-to-day basis. Like, for me, it's always been about, oh wow, well, once we get the AR glasses, it'll be so cool because then, Tony Finau will be standing right in front of me and I can, like, because right now, keep in mind, if you're doing it, you've got to like hold the phone up. So like, it's like, how can I hold the phone up? And or you have to have a friend hold the phone up while you do it. It's a little cumbersome. But like my hope is that all of the stuff that we've built should pretty effortlessly then port. It's not like we have to recreate AR Pro. We'll just port it to the glasses. And now I can see him right in front of me and I can line up. But your idea is super cool where I actually go inside of Tony and then try
not a line that turns red or something, and like you gotta.
Yes, that's a good idea.
No, I forget what you said precisely earlier in the presentation, but you used something to the effect of like technology will come along and free up the thinking about possibilities that we've never felt free to think about before. And I think with this, definitely you can see where there's times where science fiction will drive science reality forward, and stuff like the holodeck or other things that we thought, well, we can't do that right now. You have something like this come along and suddenly it's like, oh, I'm not used to thinking about the possibilities that creates. So it's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just fun to nerd out with you.
For sure. It is fun to imagine all of the crazy, weird things we're going to get to do once immersive technology reaches a more mainstream audience.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you very much for your time. This was hugely inspiring. This is really cool. I think also for our students at Gnomon, it presents like new possibilities in terms of people with training in game engines and even asset artists and things like that. As you guys
for sure,
your own things, your own virtual, environments on your end. I think it just creates really, really cool possibilities. Were there any, I think even just speaking as an entrepreneur and as a creative yourself, were there any parting words that you wanted to give to any of those viewers out there who maybe they're still in high school or maybe they're in college and they're aspiring? Any words of encouragement you want to finish off with?
Yes. Well, before I go, actually, I want to do a couple more things. One is, yes, it's not just Unity and Unreal. The 3D, like knowledge of all these 3D softwares will be useful. So if you're a Maya expert or Houdini expert, you certainly have a valuable place in this industry as well. Also, I host a group called XR Social Club, and we meet up on Wednesday nights between 6 and 7 p.m. Pacific in VR chat or alt space, usually VR chat. if you look up XR Social Club on Discord or Facebook, you can join our group, and feel free, if you have a VR headset like a Quest, feel free to bounce around with us and world hop. I guess my parting words of inspiration are, I actually got this one from oh shoot. Well, anyways, long story short, I would say enjoy problem solving. I got that one from Dane Cook over at Third Floor, and he said enjoy problem solving, because that is not just a good advice for entrepreneurship, for technology, for pioneering, but it's also a good one for life. If you can learn how to genuinely enjoy problem solving, there's nothing that will stop you from evolving and meeting the challenges of the future. So please feel free to connect with me on any of the social platforms. And I see that we do have an Unreal or Unity dev. If you want to reach out about eventually trying to work for Metastage, I'd be happy to chat with you about it. Awesome.
Well, thank you again. This has been a pleasure. It's been really cool. And then, guys, if you want to be able to go back and review this, or if any of you guys came in, not at the beginning of the stream, you're going to be able to go and see it on our Twitch channel or a YouTube channel. Just look for Gnomon in either of those spaces, because this is a good one. It's definitely one you want to go back and watch. So I just want to thank Lenovo again. I want to thank everybody who tuned into the stream live today. And I'm super looking forward to where, what you're developing will continue to take us into. Christina, this is really cool.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Alrighty. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you back here again soon.